Hello. Jeez. Oh, crap. Alright, guys. Well, thank you. I'm thinking water's being good. This water's so good. How you guys doing today? What's going on, Bitcoin Bear? Patrick Nyman ready for the big freedom grab? I don't know. I don't think they can do a big freedom grab here. As much as there's adequate fear porn, you know, there's enough stuff going out. It's weird when you check into reality at the ground floor. For instance, today, via work, via YouTube, I listened to the local council, the tri-county nonsense machine. Talk about basically hear the public's opinion on masks, mandatory masks for kids in schools. So that's of interest to me because even though my oldest will be attending kindergarten in a charter school, which doesn't have to follow the rules of public school, which is great. In general, the parents are like, everybody who showed up and spoke, they just annihilated. They just totally crushed it. Then they had a few callers. Nobody there physically showed up to present a case for masking kids. Only callers. And it was hilarious. It was a room full of people, passionate parents, just opposing this nonsense, rightfully so. And then you got a couple of callers. One cucked caller was like, because someone brought up the flu. They were like, the flu kills all these people, kills kids, and there's no masking. And he was like, yeah, well, you bring up the flu, but we have a vaccine. And it's like, everybody in the room laughed. It was like an audible group mocking laugh. And that, mocking isn't always the right thing, and it's not always the most effective thing, but in this case it was. My point is, the big fear porn freedom grab, no, you don't need to do a freedom grab. You need a bunch of people willing to donate it, to forfeit it. And the reality is there are certain places that there are highly populated with those people, but there are definitely more places. It's just like the Electoral College. Pretty much the Electoral College map, versus the density of the mob rule, right? The argument for direct democracy that's made every 4 years from the Democratic side. One vote, one man, and then you look at the map. I bet the same map can be applied to this, where if you really look at the reality, you look at the counties. You look at counties and what they think. And you get these counties to overpower whatever mandate nonsense is made at the state level or made at the city level, because the power is with the people, but it's also the local. That's where the power of the people really is. And the reality is, no matter what the mandate ends up being, the people don't follow it anyway. They'll just be like, no, we're not following. And that was what I saw today. That's why it's important to not appeal to the fear porn. It's always skewed. It's always skewed through the screen. Always. So, Denmark Bear. Hey, Denmark Bear. My wife wrote you a couple emails or whatever. Your stuff is ready to ship. It's been on the shelf, ready to go. But I didn't, in case you are someone who runs around and moves every 3 weeks, I didn't want to ship it because it's a big shipment. It's an expensive shipment, and I want to make sure it's going to you. So respond to the email, or write me a direct email that I can respond to, verifying your address. Write it to madebyjimbob@gmail.com. Your pieces are hilarious, by the way. What else is going on, you guys? I did a fun stream about gravity. I got some silly responses on my YouTube channel. One of which I think he deleted it, or YouTube did, because it was just a long back and forth of someone who's just like, gravity. There's another person who just responded too, and he said, you know, the common conflation is math and science. And this guy who comments frequently, decent fellow, he said, well, equations are an important aspect of science, he said. And then he gave an example. He said, for instance, if we want to determine the trajectory of a cannonball, we have to know the velocity and the speed and the distance, etc. And this is a common misconception about science, is that that's not, and he said, and you know, to determine or understand the observable phenomenon, that's not natural observable phenomenon. That's engineering. Don't confuse engineering with science. Engineering is post-science. Engineering is appealing to law, appealing to cause and effect that's established. A cannon, determining the trajectory of a cannonball presupposes there's something called a cannon. A cannon is not a natural phenomenon or an item found in nature. It's not a natural thing we see. It's something that's actually been created and engineered specifically a certain way for a specific result, a specific man-made phenomenon. It's not even a phenomenon because we know exactly what it is. So you can't call a cannonball a phenomenon. You can't call a flying cannon a phenomenon, okay? Just like there's no phenomena of a computer. There's no phenomena of a car. You don't observe like this car. You're like, what is that? What's causing the car? You know exactly what's causing the car. Now, if the car malfunctions or doesn't operate properly, or if you want to produce a specific kind of result with the car, that's engineering. That's trial and error. You colloquially, you can use the term science like trial and error, but it's not natural science. It's engineering. If I tweak this, does it go faster? If I tweak the brakes, does it work, you know, better? How do I tweak the car to make it a drifting car? How do I tweak the car so that it's turbo booster? These are all questions of what's engineering. These are based on law. So, again, to the person who wrote that, I think your name is Barely Listening. I don't know if you're a bear or not. Again, I don't judge the name by the bear, because I've learned that anybody could have that name, anyone could adopt that name. But your example of the cannonball is nonsense. It's not science, and it's not an example of math or equations being. And not that you said they're equivalent. You didn't say that they're equivalent. I've had some people who said math is science, which it's not. Math is descriptive. Science is explanatory. So, but again, it's another important distinction that your example was not an example of science at all. So your equations of that it's engineering. Lots of people pre-squirting without thinking over the alleged Taliban takeover. Well, I mean, my view of Afghanistan and all those places is the same as my view of Israel and any other place. Let them defend their own place. I mean, get some guns, figure it out. I I don't benefit from a war, nor do I endorse war, especially the kinds that we make. You know, the branded war, the very planned, marketed war. A war of land and culture, that's between them. I mean, these boomers who are like, now we're leaving Afghanistan. Thanks a lot, Joe Biden. It's like, you shouldn't want to be there or be against. It's like, it's not our country. Why are we operating like Afghanistan is one of America's elbows? You know? What does it have to do with you? Nothing. Math is descriptive, science is settled. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all silly to me because, you know, when it comes down to it, the Taliban, as I said, I'm going to stick to it. They're a performance troupe. They're an improv troupe for rent. They're no different than CNN, Fox, and anything else. They're there. They can be used. They can be populated. They could be removed. They can go silent. You know, they're just silent forever, and then Taliban takes over. Come on. Come on, man. What do you think about displacement as a balloon goes up? Well, displacement is there's nothing to do with gravity, just like the displacement of a water bottle and the force of water pushing it up. Displacement, you can create displacement without gravity, evoking gravity. Displacement is just like pressure. It's just area divided by some force or some mass. So put something somewhere that's already occupied, and that will push things apart. You know, I create displacement when I do annealing. You know, when you heat up metal, the crystalline structure gets compact and makes the metal hard and brittle. And so if you want to work it again, you have to heat it up to a bright red. And what happens is it separates all of those forms, and it basically creates pockets that allow it to bend again. So there's no gravity needed to explain the same principle in other areas. I mean, you don't need gravity to demonstrate displacement. What do you think keeps stuff on the ground? I have no idea. But not all stuff stays on the ground. So your starting point is that there are some things that find their way to the ground, and then there are things that don't. So if you're going to use an imagined explanation that you can't verify through science, through experimentation, the explanation that keeps things on the ground, but you don't use the same explanation for things that don't follow the same rule, then you know it's not sound. It's not legit. And keep in mind, the forces that we know of, you can actually find physical properties of. And gravity is the only, well, some people call it, some people still talk about it like it's a force. Someone in the guy who deleted his comments, unfortunately, I can't share screenshots, but he said some really dumb shit. He said all of the stuff I said he would say, like these people would say. He was like, okay, jump off a cliff. I literally said that. Go jump off a cliff and tell me the effects of gravity. I said, I'm not arguing the effects of something. I'm arguing that you just said the effects of gravity. You made that claim. I never said effects don't exist. I said you're the one attaching it to the big G. And you don't got no big G. Damn, son. Make the same argument about low density upward. What do we got here? Hey, Jordan Peterson from Meister Bear. Why do you sound like Julia Childs when you start to cry? Also, keep up the great work. Well, she was a great performer, It's like, you don't want to overbase the turkey, It's like here we have, some basic French cuisine that we're going to do, tonight. And it's like, well, the thing is, when you're excited, whether you're angry or you're moved, you have a tendency for your register to go up, And it's like, when you're filled with passion or fear or anger, your register goes up. And I would venture to say that, the similarities that you're pointing out between me and the late Julia Childs is that she was always passionate about what she's doing. You can use Streamlabs on your phone. Oh, I have Streamlabs, but I just didn't know if I need to be, I'm in my car, so I don't have, I do this all data. I don't have a connection to the interwebs right now, so I don't know if that affects it, but I'll try that next time. It'll eventually cause brittleness compared to metal fatigue. Yeah, you twist it, you bend it, you hammer it. Any sort of like moving of it and squishing it together, rolling it out, anything that causes everything to get compact. That's amazing to me. I'm still, every time I anneal something, I'm still like, wow, that's pretty insane. It's just changing a form. It's just changing its state. Jordan is definitely getting more Canadian. It's funny when someone first was like tagged like his daughter, I was like very on the nose with his impression. And I'm wondering if anyone who's seen my impression when I first started and maybe didn't see me for a while and then came back to it, if they would be like, what the hell happened? It's like he used to do a pretty on the nose impression, but now it's like this weird, devolved, broken. Basically, my impression of Peterson is consistent with his own breaking down. I'm just going with him. I'm just mirroring. Nobody knows what causes volcanoes. Well, I went to the geyser, Old Faithful, and I was laughing because I was sitting there and I was like, it's totally possible that this is basically funded by like Disney, and underneath it is just like a factory and people do like they have a system and then they release a lever every 90 minutes or whatever. And everyone's sitting out there waiting with their cameras. They're like, I hope it's a good one today. And I was like, they could totally do that. They could totally do that. They could probably do that with volcanoes too. So, anywho. Jordan, do I actually exist? Well, I mean, if you're asking, then that's probably, sufficient enough to say yes. The old saying is, I think, therefore I am. But I don't agree with that, And here's the reason why. Because if you're saying I think, you're already presupposing that you exist. In other words, you cannot say I think without I am, which is sort of the statement. But at the same time, you're starting with that as the justification for existence. But that requires existence. So it's both true and not true, Just mixing up the pancakes, Just mixing up the egg whites, Old Faithful could be mechanical. I think it's possible, big time. Because I looked at it, and I'm like, the buildup of it, like you're sitting without fences or any protective layers or anything like that. And then there's this kind of like lead up with this like, what looks like rock, but if you look closer, it kind of looks like the fake cement they put in like really badly done fountains at like fusion Mexican sushi places, like the tropical rainforest kind of cafe thing. And I'm like, it's all so neatly done up to this little, hole that's so specific, and it produces the same thing every time. And I don't know, it's sketchy. I'm a little sketched out. Nick A. Hey, Dr. Fauci, I'm on the fence about a booster. Any advice?
Well, I mean, maybe a booster can get you a little bit further along with your immunity. At the same time, if the booster makes you overproduce the spike protein and it becomes sheddable, then you might actually, maybe, possibly in the future, it's unknown whether or not that could actually play into what could be possibly another way of dealing with pandemics in general in the future, but not with any level of certainty at the moment. I hope that was clear.
Jordan is turning into Doubtfire. Yeah, Jordan pretty much is Mrs. Doubtfire already, who is basically Julia Childs if you really think about it. Aladdin would have been thrown off a roof if it was realistic. Well, Aladdin was actually originally Asian, so, but I know what you mean. I mean, it would be funny to like redo that, like in the beginning where he steals the apples, and like they just catch him and they cut his hands off, and like the modern woke inclusive version of Aladdin actually included him getting his hands chopped off, and it was about like just being, a challenged person's Azurze without hands, and he's just like, the whole story changes between like him being poor, but now he's poor and he has no hands. And it's like all about Disney inclusivity. And he's just running around with his nubs. And, he's got a genderless monkey. And like Jasmine's a lesbo. And so his challenge is like seeing if he can identify as a woman so that they can have a lesbian relationship and run the castle together. One slip, no, please don't. And then you just cut to it. It's like pretty immediate and brutal, because he always gets away. But I mean, they would just catch him and just, do Ben Shapiro meeting Fauci being starstruck?
Dr. Fauci, I mean, I don't actually agree with all your policies or suggestions, but it really is an honor to meet you. I've read all your books. I've read all the books about you. I mean, you're considered on the opposing, you're on the opposite line of the aisle for me. But the thing is, we're working together. I mean, a pandemic is not a partisan issue. I mean, it's a health issue, and the Delta is very real, very scary, and killing a lot of people. I mean, that's all, folks. I mean, it's just an honor. It's an honor to meet you. It's like, I trust the doctors. My wife's a doctor. Did you know my wife's a doctor? Well, I mean, one could say that it's possible that you and me could possibly agree in the future about certain things regarding the health policies at the federal level or the state or the local level. But it's also a possibility, perhaps sometime down the line, that you and I would actually disagree at such a magnitude that we would no longer be speaking. By the way, I love your new yarmulke mask invention. Truly truly innovative, and probably it could possibly help people in the future. Maybe. Science says touch your nose. Science says put 3 masks on your face. I mean, the Delta variant is very, very real, but at this point, making people wear masks is just a power grab.
Oh, really, Ben Shapiro? It's just a power grab, but the entire thing isn't a power grab, not like well documented for 12 years.
No, that's just some, conspiracy moon landing stuff. I mean, stop listening to Alex Jones. I mean, stop.
Hola, Rusty. Hola. Fauci sounds like he has chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Oh, he's a real creep. Shut up, Ben. Pretty much. That guy did not get enough wedgies. Now that I look at it, I'm like, at first it was like Bill Gates didn't get enough wedgies, which is true, but it's actually not even comparable to someone like Ben Shapiro. Because Bill Gates is very still much like, feeble and wimpy. He's wimpy. There isn't a false bravado. He's still like,
I got pegged by Melinda. Big deal.
And Ben Shapiro has a false bravado, overconfident, and unwarranted. Like, he still doesn't realize he's not at the cool table. There's nothing, no amount of money or books written or, awards or takedowns of 17-year-old socialists who are in debt that could give him access to what is seen as socially cool or in. You'll never have it. But you think you have it. Crowder backed the wrong horse. Well, he was always attached to the authorized horse anyway, so. Simon Says was priming for Science Says. Yeah, absolutely. Whether they knew it or not, it's like, just use some of that stuff. Grant. Hey, Grant, what's going on? Hey, Shapiro, are you going to buy 3,000 copies of Savage Memes to turn a profit? And do you secretly want a magnet from this sticker pack? That's hilarious.
No, I do not. I have no interest in the book. I have no interest in the cartoonist or the author. I mean, he's definitely, low level shit poster. I should say SHIT poster. And, he's deplorable. I mean, this is the one time I actually use that word and actually agree with the word.